Ah, there you are. I wondered where you'd been. Good afternoon to you, or good morning. Good morning, Jack. I know it's morning for you. And wherever you're watching, hello. I thought I'd stick with this music because everybody said how much they liked it. Short and sweet, but yes, there you have it. So yeah, welcome to Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel. Plenty to get through today. First off, what I want to say is rest in peace to this lady, Angela Lansbury, beautiful Angela Lansbury, on what would have been her 97th birthday today. She was born on October the 16th, 1925. And as you can see, she was in many famous movies, and she was in, of course, Murder, She Wrote. And for Elvis fans, of course, she played Elvis's mother in Blue Hawaii, even though she was only 10 years older than Elvis at the time. But it kind of worked. It did. And I wanted to pay tribute to Angela, beautiful Angela Lansbury, who passed away a couple of days ago. May she rest in peace. And also, it's hard to believe, but it's exactly 12 months ago today that hard-working Ronnie Tutt from Big D left us. Of course, Elvis's drummer in the TCB band for many years, 1969 through to 1977. So again, rest in peace, Ronnie. So as always, we've got plenty to get through. We have, of course, This Day in Elvis History, Fan of the Month quiz, prize up for grabs. And also, I want to tell you as well that next month, I have a super prize as well. The November's prize for Fan of the Month isn't even available to buy yet. That's how fresh it's going to be. It's going to be available mid-November time, I think. So if you can hang on for a couple of weeks until the end of November, you could well snap that prize up if you take part in the quiz. Now, don't forget, you have to be a subscriber to take part in the quiz, because to take part in the quiz, you have to comment, and only subscribers can comment, because we have a subscribers only mode, because we were getting quite a few silly comments and things coming through. And speaking of which, Maxine and Ludane are my moderators, and they will keep things nice and tidy in the chat. We also have a live interactive poll coming up, and I want you to vote on that if you can. It's a multiple choice question, and you just have to click on your option. It's completely anonymous. I don't know who votes and what you vote for. And I've also got I Wish Elvis Had Recorded. And this is a song that either myself or a listener or a viewer wishes that Elvis had recorded during his career. And this one is actually supplied by a listener. So if it's one of you, you might want to stick around till near the end when I do that. I have Photoshop of the Week as well, and I must admit this one is horrendous. It really is a bad one. I've got to admit, it's one of the worst Elvis Photoshops I've seen. And also, we will be discussing, as you can see, the red banner on the screen is the inside story of Elvis in Canada. So after the quiz, I will be phoning somebody by the name of Dan. Hi, Dan. Thanks for taking part in this. It's most appreciated. And he will be telling us all about when Elvis appeared in Canada. He has a connection. Him and his family have a connection between Elvis appearing in Canada in 1957. So he'll have a little bit of information on that for us. But without further ado, I'm going to do... I want to make sure I wanted to... I wanted to also mention the Oscar night again, because Leslie Pilling, there you go. The Oscar night is the 25th of March 2023 at Haydock Park Golf Club. So this is only really sort of of interest if you're in the UK or Ireland. But she wanted me to point out that Jewel Jumpsuit Creations by Leslie, which she's working on, pieces to be auctioned. This is what they look like. They're not actually full jumpsuits. So just in case anybody picked it up wrong last week, it's actually these, which is obviously a picture of the jumpsuit, my favourite, the peacock. And then what she's done to the side of it is she's done a sample of the jumpsuit. So there you are. So there's some of the ones that's going to be auctioned off during that night at Haydock Park Golf Club. There's obviously the Aloha suit. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear. So we're going to do the quiz, everybody. Don't forget, if there's a particular thing you want me to address or a particular question or anything you want to say to me, you can use the super chat by clicking on the $, I think it is, at the bottom of the chat column, and you can ask me a question or announce something, and it will stay on the screen until I address it. So the quiz, and it's a new one. It's a new topic. Just like last week, I hope you enjoyed last week's when we did the Name the Jumpsuit, and that will probably be making another appearance because I think a lot of people enjoyed that, and hopefully a lot of people will enjoy this as well. This is Name the co-star. Name the Elvis co-star. Most of them are fairly easy. One of them might trip people up. They're not photographs of the co-star as they appeared in Elvis's movies. They are photographs taken away from Elvis's movies, or maybe before or after they were in an Elvis movie. And if I find that people thought they were too easy, I'll make them more difficult next time. So if Ludane and Maxine are ready to moderate, because I like to get them to help me just to confirm who gets the question correct first. And Maxine says she's ready for it. Chris says, oh God, I'll be rubbish. You never know. You never know. Six co-stars coming up. And I was going to say something and it's completely gone out of my head, so hopefully it'll come back. And it's a picture of them, and you have to tell me, obviously, who it is. Naming the co-star or film. Okay, you have to name the co-star. Bossa Nova Baby. Good question. But that's basically what it is. You have to tell me... does spelling matter? Well, I mean, they're fairly easy to spell, but I will. I mean, if I see, it near, the spelling is near, then that's good enough for me. All right, Steve, I have a handicap. Okay, Chris, no bother. So here we go. Who is this co-star? Who is that? Kirsty Marie says, cool. Now, as far as I remember, I don't know why, nearly all of these are in swimsuits. Okay. Duncan Campbell says Barbara Stanwyck. In fact, a lot of people are saying Barbara Stanwyck. Yes, his co-star in Roustabout. So basically, Duncan, I think, gets this.
Bring out the booze, Grandma.
Yeah. I can't see. What do you mean you can't see her face? Okay, so Ludane says yes, Duncan. So we're going to give that to Duncan. Right. And Maxine says, well done, Duncan, as well. Only knew her with her lighter hair. Right, yes. And she was, she was quite glamorous in her younger days, wasn't she? Barbara Stein was in an Elvis movie, ? Yes, Christine, she was, yes. She was in Roustabout. Yeah. Because I'm on the phone. Right, I understand what you mean, yeah. Okay. I might take that into account and make them bigger next time. Right, so co-star number 2. Are you ready? Stand by. get your fingers poised onto the keyboard because this is number 2. Who is that? Yes, that's right. Steve, her grandson, is one of the, someone said is Elvis. That's right. It's her son. Yes. Faye. Okay. So Ludane says Barbara Eden. So Maxine, can you tell me who gave Barbara Eden first? It looks like it was Ludane. And obviously Barbara Eden was in Flaming Star. Yeah, Maxine says Ludane. Ludane gets this.
Bring out the booze, Grandma.
I've got a new one lined up for that. So I downloaded it onto the soundboard last night, and I'm going to be using that over the next few weeks. But we'll leave this one.
Bring out the booze, Grandma.
For another week or two. I might change it in November. Yeah, actually, I've only just noticed that. Almost a wardrobe malfunction there. Yes, that's right, for Barbara. Yeah. Right, here we go. Number 3. Who is this co-star? Yeah, I didn't do this deliberately, but most of them seem to be sort of bikini shots or swimsuit shots. Okay. Duncan says Stella Stevens, and that's quite correct. It is Stella Stevens. So I just need to check now who got that right first, but I think it was Duncan. And Maxine says Duncan. So Duncan,
bring out the booze, Grandma.
Duncan, that's 2 for you now. Well done. And apparently, I'm sure that it was not on purpose, Steve. No, it wasn't. Believe it or not, it wasn't. But I'm getting to realize now that most of them are quite risque-ish photographs. Quite tame, really, for 2022, I suppose. Yeah. Now, reportedly, Stella Stevens didn't quite like. She didn't like Elvis that much, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but yeah, strange. One of the very few people that didn't like him, if it's true. Right, number 4. Who is this? There you go. Another swimsuit. Sorry, folks. That one might not be quite as straightforward. We will believe you, Steve. Thousands wouldn't. Okay, Tuesday Weld. How can you not like Elvis? True. Tuesday Weld and Helm. Yes, this has tripped a few people up. This has definitely tripped a few people up. Ah, right. We finally got somebody that's got it right. The chipmunk has pneumonia. Jenny Maxwell from Blue Hawaii. The one that he puts over his knee and gives her a spanking. Right. Not a very flattering picture. Correct. It's not. And I wasn't sure whether that might trip people up. And it did. Yeah, a lot of people thinking it was Tuesday Weld. Now, so Chipmunk. Well done, Chipmunk. You get this.
Bring out the booze, Grandma.
Chipmunk. Yeah, I haven't really looked to see who's in the running yet for the fan of the month for October, because we're kind of halfway through, aren't we? But yeah, I know Jack had a good week. I think Jack had one of a good week, the first week. So now, number 5. Who is this? Again, this might just trip a few up. Who's that? Jenny Maxwell, Blue Hawaii. And number 5 is Chris says, well done, everyone who got it right. Yes, I agree. Well done, everybody who got it right. Okay, Jocelyn Lane, Dolores Hart, Stay Away Joe. Yeah, now we have a winner, just pipped at the post. The chipmunk has pneumonia, was Mike M, because that is Barbara McNair. Yeah, a lot of people are saying Barbara McNair now, but I think Mike M was the first. I'm just going to wait for confirmation for that. Well done, Mike M. You get this.
Bring out the booze, Grandma.
And Maxine says Mike M. Thanks, Maxine. And just for the fun of it, what Elvis movie was she in? Let's see who can give me that. Mike M laughs and thumbs up. Yeah, Bossa Nova Baby says, what was Barbara in? And Salam has said, and Helen and Tracy and Elvis Austin. A lot of people actually saying what movie she was in. Yes, correct. Change of Habit. Okay. And last but by no means least, who is this? I think she was probably wearing the most clothes out of the 6 of them. Can anybody tell me who that is? Bossa Nova Baby says, oh yes, one of the nuns. Yes. I think I might have got you here, because there's somebody saying no clue. Risque outfit. Not close up enough. Barbara McNair. Oh, the chipmunk has pneumonia. Banjo Paul. Well done, Banjo. Bill Bixby. You deserve a... Ay. Could this be the first time ever, right, that I have to say no contest and nobody gets this right? Raquel Welsh, no. Joan Blackman, no. Julie Parrish. Somebody moved on to their tablet to see it better. She looks familiar. I'm going to give a clue in a minute. I'm going to tell you what movie it was. Okay. Yeah, that's better than not getting one right. Yeah. Charlie Hodge. Charlie Hodge. Oy. Of course, I forget that a lot of people are watching this on their phones and the screen is only kind of... okay. Kirsty Marie has given you the name of the movie. But this has got to be one of the longest times people I've actually had to wait for a correct answer. Normally the answers are there. Bang. Straight away. Billy Smith. That's close. Patrick. Yay. Lou Dan says Fran Jeffries. I'm going to give it to Lou Dane. Yes.
Bring out the booze, Grandma.
Well done, Lou Dane. Yeah. So that is 2 to Lou Dane, 2 to Duncan, 1 to Chipmunk, and 1 to Mike M. Salam says so hard. Yeah. Well, yeah. I suppose I could have cropped that a little bit and just shown her top half, I suppose. But I don't know whether that would have made much difference, because it's not... I was going to say it's not a very well-known Elvis film, but a lot of us would know it, wouldn't we? We would know it. That's for sure. So, yeah, that I think that was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot from it. And what I've learned more than anything else is that maybe I should make the pictures a little bit bigger next time, because, of course, I forget that a lot of people are watching this on their phones. They're not watching it on a 75-inch television screen or anything like that. So, yeah, so that's maybe something I've learned. But fun. Yeah, very suggestive pose going on there. I agree. Scorpio guy says known as Harem Holiday. Yes, Harem Scarum or Harem Holiday, yeah. I can't answer because I'm looking at the girls. says Elvis Austin. Elvis Austin, I also like to tell you that your 4K and Blu-ray disc is on its way. Thanks, Nancy. She says it was great. I got an email today to say that your prize is on its way because Elvis Austin won last month's prize, and it was the 4K and Blu-ray disc of Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's movie. So now the topic. I'm just sorry, Fran. I'm going to have to get rid of you. Sorry about this. Okay, because as you can see, the inside story of Elvis in Canada is the topic, the main topic, if you like, of this week's show. Of course, there's other stuff coming up. I'm going to do the poll, and I'm going to do Elvis history and Photoshop, and I wish Elvis had recorded, and so forth. So there's still plenty to come up. Don't worry about it. Elvis in Canada. On August the 31st, 1957, Elvis Presley gave one of the most legendary concerts of his career at Empire Stadium in Vancouver, British Columbia. It would be his last performance outside the US. Crowd estimates range from 16,000 to over 26,000. Either way, it was the biggest crowd he faced in 1957. Thousands of spectators left the stands and charged down the football field before halting just short of the goal line, where Elvis gyrated on stage. Fear that the excited crowd might advance on the stage caused Elvis to cut his performance down to only 22 minutes, about half his normal time on the stage in 1957. After Elvis split, hundreds of fans burst through the security line and overran the stage. Eventually the crowd dispersed and Elvis's Vancouver show passed into history. Now, however, I have been offered to speak to somebody who has a family connection with that night in Vancouver, and with a little bit of luck, I am going to be able to get this gentleman on the phone line now. So let's see if I can get him on. It's ringing.
Hello.
Hello, Dan.
Hi.
Hi, it's a pleasure to speak to you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing nice and sunny here in Vancouver today. So.
Is it? Well, I can honestly tell you, right, that it is wet and windy in Ireland, and it's going to get even windier apparently during the night. But I'm going to be under the covers, so I'm going to be fine.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right. Well, it's great. Yeah, I really like your show, Steve. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you very, very much. Yes, it's a pleasure to have you on the show as well. Now, tell us a little bit about the background to Elvis appearing in Vancouver and your family's connection with this event.
Okay, well, basically it all started, my mother is Red Robinson's, I would call him almost like a stepbrother.
Okay.
And the family originated back when they lived in Seashelt, and before the dad, Red Robinson's father, married Red Robinson's mother, he was with another woman, which was my grandmother, of course, and they had a child together. And it's something that's not printed anywhere because it's really, really private. So I'm just going to keep it here. But
fair enough.
But yeah, so I'm basically his nephew. And
okay, and for the listeners, can you tell us who Red Robinson is? If they don't know.
Red Robinson is basically the very first DJ that entered Canada in about 1954.
Okay.
He did little spots on radio stations before that in the early 50s. When he was about 12, 13, 14 years old. He used to phone in to one of the radio stations here in Vancouver and do impressions of actors, like Jimmy Stewart or things like that. And they were so impressed with him about, like, he used to fool them. He used to phone them and pretend that he was Jimmy Stewart or somebody else, and they would think it was him. And he was so good at it. They found out it was, of course, a little kid doing this, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
And they gave him a couple spots on the radio stations just to liven up the station a bit. So that's how he got started doing this type of thing.
And he was the first disc jockey to play rock and roll music in Vancouver.
He was the very first. Yes. He was the first disc jockey in Canada to play rock and roll. of course, there was, when Alan Freed came out, and then, of course, you had Sam Phillips. He knew Sam Phillips very well in
right.
Memphis.
Right.
And when Sam Phillips was playing what they called back then, hope nobody takes this to a bad point, but race records.
Yeah.
He basically heard Sam Phillips was playing these race records, and he thought it would be very unique that if he tried to do this in Canada. So he was known not just in Canada, but he was known all over the United States with him and Sam Phillips at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's the well-known disc jockey out here that started way back in 1954, and he's interviewed, oh my goodness, in the 50s, I think he interviewed over 500 singers, 500 celebrities.
Wow.
That he did back then. And he just became such an icon in this country that, it just built up to the point that one day, he said, let's get Elvis Presley into Vancouver. And so, that's where he started from. So,
and of course, he was at the press conference when Elvis arrived in Vancouver. And,
yes, he was. Yes,
and those interviews can be heard on. I actually have the original LP called the Elvis tapes. I'm just showing that on the screen now for anybody that's interested. And it's a fascinating interview. It really is.
It's an unbelievable interview. I didn't really hear that interview, of course. I was born in 1965, so I didn't really hear that interview until actually later on after Elvis died, because my mom and dad were so connected to him. Mm-hmm. He was very good friends with my father and stuff like that, so I didn't really hear that till later. But yes, Red Robinson is the one that put that press conference together, and he had a few other people from Vancouver, like radio stations, that were there as well. I think he had about 8 or 9 reporters there from different radio stations all over Vancouver and from Seattle and Bellingham, which is right across the line. If any of you listeners know about Canada, we're very close to Bellingham and Seattle and Tacoma and places like that. So he had a whole bunch there on that press conference himself. And it's so funny though, Steve, he was sitting on a little table, probably no bigger than a little coffee table almost. And he had one knee up and he had the other one curled under his leg. And he couldn't move anywhere. And the nice man that Elvis was, and politeness that he was, Red Robinson told me this briefly, like a long time ago, and he actually reminded me again when I told him I was going to be on your show. He told me that Elvis basically would not tell the guys that he was uncomfortable.
Right, right.
So when they were interviewing him, he was just answering questions, yes and no, and great, and being so polite about it.
Yeah.
And then finally they took a break from the press conference and he moved his other leg around and it fell asleep on him, right? So,
yeah.
But he
so you sent me a picture as well. Your mom is in a picture with Elvis.
That's right.
I think I can get that up now. For the listeners looking at this photograph now, she is on Elvis's left. And she's
in the white blouse,
with white blouse and blonde hair. So
that's right.
On the right of the picture as we look at it, but Elvis's left shoulder. So that is your mother.
That's right. That is my mother. What happened is that she got into the show, of course, because they know, the Red Robinson got him in, and that was before the concert happened. Probably maybe a couple hours. That was before the press conference, of course, and he just let a few people backstage that were some of them were part of the media or this kind of thing. And Red came up to my mom and just said, like before the show, make sure you meet me 2 hours at this gate. I got a surprise for you. Mm-hmm. So Red came in and brought my mom in there and said, stand right here. And then there was other girls that came in that were part of the family of the media. And they came in and stood right there. And all of a sudden Elvis just walked out. And my mom is not a scream type of person. She doesn't flip over artists like this. She loved Elvis, believe me, but she didn't go head over heels for him. Mm-hmm. But the 3 girls that were beside him, apparently one almost fainted when he walked out. And
every single one of those girls is they're all eyes on Elvis.
Yes.
Surprisingly.
When Elvis came up, and apparently when Elvis came out and she almost fainted, Elvis was like, oh my God, Elvis tried to actually catch her. She almost fainted into his arms. And that picture is taken actually after Elvis Presley, they the medics came out because they didn't know what was wrong with her, and they fixed her up. Everything was fine, and then they got that picture by the photographer there. So yeah, that was a highlight in my mother's life. That's for sure. She couldn't believe it. But my mother had told me that he was just like, he's with his fans, but he was the most gentle, kindest person. Like, just loved his fans like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, we've heard this so many times. He was just such a great guy, a genuine guy.
Yeah. Yes, very genuine. And Red Robinson has told me himself that because what happened, if I can go back a bit, Steve, what happened was during the press conference, they did the press conference, but Elvis actually, when Elvis arrived in Vancouver, I'll throw out this story here for you guys. He basically he told all the media, and Colonel Parker did this, he told all the media and everybody else that he's going to be arriving at the airport at this time. Well, he never arrived at the airport. He took a train from Seattle.
Right.
So the train, came across the border and went into the Vancouver train station. And Red Robinson knew this. He got the scoop somehow, and his gut feeling was telling me, you know what, Elvis isn't going to arrive at the airport. He's going to arrive at the train station. So he took a chance and he went to the train station. He was the only reporter there because everybody else was at the and Red Robinson did that Colonel Parker did that on purpose.
Yeah.
So, and one of the reasons he did this on purpose too, Steve, was because the letters he got from Vancouver, apparently Elvis Presley has said this himself, was unbelievable. More than some states got. Wow. Like in the United States. Yeah. Like he was so huge here. When Colonel heard that, he didn't want to take a chance for him to get like one of the biggest mob receptions ever. So when he came into the train station, Red Robinson met him and, said hello to him and all this and shook his hand and everything else. And Elvis knew that when he got off the train station that there wouldn't be a lot of people there, but he kind of said to him, he goes, well, I guess my career is done now. You're the only one who met me. So, and they started joking around and playing from there. And they had a really special bond. They really, for the only 3 or 4 hours that he knew him, that he was with him that day, even the next day, he had a real nice connection with him. And there was a point where Elvis got into the limo and then he drove to the hotel. It was the Georgia. If anybody out there knows what Vancouver is, it's a Georgia hotel. That's where he stayed. And as he went to the hotel room up there, of course, Red Robinson came out later, and they let him know where the room was because he was going to come and do an interview with him. Mm-hmm. But Elvis really didn't want any interviews done at the same time. So basically, Elvis went up to the room and he had his road manager with him. I forget his name. It was at the time, Dixie something.
It was probably, I forgot his name as well now. Colonel Parker's right-hand man.
Exactly. It was Dixie something. Yeah. I forget his name.
Oh, it's gone. It's gone. And somebody's going to, Tom Diskin.
Oh, Tom Diskin, there. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's him.
I just couldn't think of his name. I went completely blank.
Yeah. So anyways, what happened is, Tom Diskin and Elvis were in the hotel room, and Colonel or Red Robinson was in the lobby and said, I'm with Red Robinson. I'm with, the radio station here, and proved his ID, who he was and everything and stuff. Oh yeah, they're expecting you. Okay, come on in. So Colonel Parker set up this interview apparently, and Elvis really didn't know about it. So they knocked on the door, and Tom Dixon opened the door and said, "Oh, Mr. Robinson, oh, nice to meet you. Come on in." And shook his hand, and and Elvis walked in, jumped up, and said, "What did you do? Follow me?" And he didn't know he was coming, so he said, "Oh no, I just want to come and get to know you, and I'm not going to be doing any interviews like that." And when that happened, Elvis apparently, because he was on guard that he was going to be doing this interview, and Elvis just said, "Oh, great." So we got him a drink, and they sat down and they talked, and they got to know each other because he's emceeing this concert.
Yes, that's right. So, he was MC as well.
That's right. He was MC. Actually, there was a fellow in Seattle that did the booking to get Elvis in Seattle, Tacoma, and Vancouver. And when Red Robinson was chosen to be the MC, because he had already wrote Tom Parker months before that and said, we want to get Elvis into Vancouver. And Tom Parker knew who Red Robinson was and wrote him back and said, you know, he kind of did a little impression of him saying, well, yeah, like a cigarette in his mouth and cigar in his mouth saying, well, yeah, Red, it's when we come up to the Northwest, we'll definitely be looking you up, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so basically that's how we got him here. So he requested him to come, but he went through another promoter in the States.
Yeah.
And when he talked to the promoter, he said, when you go to Vancouver, make sure Red Robinson does the emceeing for this concert. So
the concert itself was quite wild because, as I said in my intro, the fans tried to sort of rush the stage, didn't they? And Elvis actually had to cut the performance short.
Yeah, he did. Unfortunately, what happened is, it's so funny because my mother was in the stands. She was sitting way in the back on the other side of the stage, and my dad was on the opposite side, but they didn't know each other yet.
Mm. Right.
So my father was, because they met later on in Penticton, British Columbia. And my dad was way up in one of the high rafters in the corners with his buddies and stuff. And it was so noisy. Anybody out there, if you want to go ahead and Google Red Robinson's 1957 concert, there is some audio in there that you will find where he introduces Elvis, and you guys will hear how loud it was.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't hear Red Robinson saying too much, so they had to ump the speakers up.
Mm.
And when they did, it kind of got muffled because it had to go higher than the crowd. They were so excited. And they couldn't hear what Elvis was singing for the first 7 seconds.
Wow.
Or what he was saying, because the speakers that they had there were a little bit lower. So they upped the sound up and it got a little muffled.
Oh.
And so finally, he said, "Oh, I'm glad to be here in Vancouver, blah, blah, blah." And then he started singing right away. He started singing not Jailhouse Rock, Heartbreak Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And so as he got into Heartbreak Hotel, and then he started doing Don't Be Cruel, and then he started doing a lot of his other hits. He only did 5 songs. That's all he did.
Mm.
And it started building and building and building and building. A few of these fans got onto the field somehow. They didn't have a lot of security, and thinking nobody would run on the field because the seats, actually, there was no seats on the field.
All right.
I did send you, Steve, a picture of Empire Stadium.
Yes, I'm showing that now. It's coming round as we speak, yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. On that field there, as you guys can see, there's no seats. They didn't sell anything on the field. Nothing. They want everybody in the stands.
Yeah.
So a few people started running onto the field. And of course, now everybody's running on the field.
Once one person starts running, they all follow.
Everybody ran. And then they had a little gate right in front of the stage. But it wasn't strong enough to keep, 6,000-7,000 people from getting crushed up to the front. And they had these military guards that were at this. These are the only guards that they had. They had about 8 or 9 of them totally at this concert. That's all they had. And they were clinging arms together, and they were holding arms. I think I sent you a picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were clinging in arms together, trying to hold 8,000 or 9,000 people back, while Elvis was getting probably onto his 3rd to the 5th last song.
Mm.
And it got so bad that they knocked them down, and they just toppled all over them and went towards the stage.
Wow.
And it was such a madhouse that Red Robinson was standing on the stage in the back near Colonel Parker. And as they ran up, I think Elvis's last song, I can't remember what he said it was. I think it might have been Hound Dog. That did it. I mean, he basically put his guitar down nicely and walked by Red Robinson and said, "Man, I'm out of here."
Yeah.
So he had a golden jacket on, as you can see in the pictures.
Yes.
And he took that golden jacket and he threw it onto his cousin that was there. And his cousin grabbed the gold jacket, threw it on, went into the car, and took off, where all the fans started running after this car because they thought it was him.
Yeah.
And in behind the stage, they built a secret hideaway for Elvis. So it was like a secret door. So Red Robinson and him went into the secret door when they went down back and hid in the secret door until all the fans left. And everybody in that time, they were saying it was a riot. Well, it wasn't a riot. There was just a bunch of kids chasing this car down the street.
Yeah.
And then once they couldn't find it, they stopped, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Elvis and Red Robinson came out of the secret door after Colonel Parker came over and said, "Okay, they're all gone." They got out of the secret door, walked right across the field. Nobody was there, right into the dressing room. He got changed. caught his limo, and went to the hotel.
Brilliant. That was
Yeah.
very, very clever. Very, very clever.
Yeah. And apparently a lot of shows like that too, Steve, he had a lot of secret entrances because he didn't know how the audience was going to compete that way. And the funny thing about this too was Red Robinson, after he went back to the hotel and everything, Red Robinson went back to his show and he played nothing but Elvis records from about 10:30 till about 6 a.m. And he actually said, "Oh yes, and just to let you fans know, Elvis is okay. Elvis is fine."
Yeah.
And he's staying at the Georgia Hotel in room number, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. So all of a sudden, about 8 in the morning, all these fans come rushing into the Georgia Hotel, ran upstairs, but Elvis was already gone. Somebody knocked down the door and they ripped up the sheets and everything and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, my goodness.
So I know. So he was already gone on a plane and out of there. But the sad thing about this, though, is that Elvis just said he was very surprised of the Canadian way of doing things, because we're supposed to be known out here as really nice, gentle people. And he says all the shows that he's done, he's never seen a wilder crowd than that.
Wow.
Like ever.
Wow.
And the funny thing is that he actually came to Toronto and Ottawa in April of 1957 before August.
Yeah.
And he did 2 shows in Toronto and 2 in Ottawa. And they were loud and everything else, but they weren't like that. So,
and of course, by 1957, he had seen, he'd done a lot of shows and he'd seen a lot of wild antics going on. So that must have been something that day for him to say that was the wildest he'd ever seen.
Yeah. And in fact, there's an interview out there, and I think people might have seen it if you go into the files. He's dressed in the red and white shirt, and he's in Houston talking about going to the Houston Astrodome.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen that interview. He's been asking by a lot of crowds. Okay. And then one of the reporters asked, "What is the wildest crowd you ever played in front of? Or the biggest crowd you ever played?" And right away he said Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which was, shocking that he would say that. But he never forgot about Vancouver. He never, ever forgot about
Red is still with us, isn't he? He's keeping well, as far as I know.
Yeah, he's doing well. He's living in a home in Vancouver. He's 85 years old. He's in a wheelchair. He's got a memory as anything.
Really?
He can still, his memory. His speech impediment is really, 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 it's going. Yeah, he would have been really, really hard to interview for you because his speech was really tough to understand.
Yeah.
But I had told him I was going to be on your show, and when I did, I went down and saw him, and he was as great as anything. But his memorabilia
I hope you can find a way of playing this back to him on playback. And
I'm going to. Yeah.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to say hi to Red and thanks for all you did for Elvis in 1957. It was much appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he really enjoyed Elvis. And then the funny thing about I think right before he left for the Army in 58, he phoned Colonel Parker, and it is on the files too that you listen to, that he phoned him looking for Elvis because he wanted to talk to him before he was going to the Army. And Colonel Parker was making excuses. Oh, he just left and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So, yes.
I remember hearing that one. Yeah. For anybody that's interested, the Elvis tapes are, as far as I know, available still on vinyl, on tape, and probably on YouTube as well. You can probably find the Red Robinson interviews on YouTube, I believe.
Yes, and if you guys can, Google Red Robinson books. He's got 2 or 3 books out too that are very, very good.
Yeah,
about his life and one about Elvis only. So,
Dan, it's been a pleasure. I hope that the listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have, and I really appreciate you giving up your time and coming on to the show. Thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
It's been great, Steve. You do wonderful work. Thank you very much.
Thanks, and take care, and I'll speak again to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So that was Dan, nephew of Red Robinson, as you've probably guessed by now, who was MC and local DJ and set all the everything up for Vancouver. Fascinating to hear that, and as I say, thanks once again to Dan for that, and I really do hope that everybody enjoyed that. I was flying by the seat of my pants there, because that's one of the first times I've actually sort of spoken to somebody and interviewed somebody live. I normally do it I record it, then I edit it all up and then put it up. But that was sort of a flying by the seat of my pants. But as I think you'll agree, Dan spoke very, very well and very, very interesting. So we will now move on to Elvis history. Will I do the poll? Because I haven't actually done the poll yet, have I? And this is what the poll is going to be. The poll is going to be, which do you prefer when listening to an Elvis song? As Elvis did it, no overdubs, so just as Elvis did it in the studio, with overdubs, or I enjoy both versions, and I'm going to put that up now. If you're watching this on playback, unfortunately, you won't be able to obviously vote, and you won't see the result as far as I know. But I announced the result near the end of the show anyway, so stick around for that. And if you're interested to know, do people prefer the way Elvis sang it in the studio, or they prefer with the overdubs on it, the extra vocals and the strings and so forth, or they can enjoy both versions. And as you probably know from listening to this show, I prefer no overdubs. If I was given a choice of a master with no overdubs, a master with overdubs, or the raw take that Elvis did in the studio before anybody got their hands on it, then I would go for the one that Elvis did it with no overdubs. But that's just me. I'd still be interested to know how that comes out. And you've got a few minutes to vote on that, because we're going to do Elvis history, Photoshop, and I Wish Elvis Had Recorded. And the song this week, I Wish Elvis Had Recorded, is supplied by a listener. So if you're watching, then it could well be one of yours. So this day in Elvis history, October the 16th, 1954. And as always, we have accompanying photographs for some of the years. And 1954, 2 weeks after his appearance in Nashville, at the Grand Ole Opry, Elvis Presley performs on the country music program Louisiana Hayride, Municipal Auditorium, broadcast live on KWKH in Shreveport, Louisiana. After an enthusiastic reception from the audience, Elvis is booked to appear every week for a year at $18 per show. His sidemen, Bill Black and Scotty Moore, as can be seen there in the photograph, are paid $12 each. Elvis, Scotty and Bill performed both sides of their first single twice. Scotty even contributed a short guitar solo. Afterwards, Sam Phillips knew Elvis had fully worked out his own performance style and could stand on his own. So in this day in Elvis history, 1954, it was really starting to take off. Elvis's career was really, really starting to take off. I know he just looks like a really, really young fella there, doesn't he? But yeah, things were really starting to take off. 1955, for one night, Elvis joined a Hank Snow show and met Bill Haley there. 1950s, actually, I've got more information. It took place at the Municipal Auditorium, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 3:30 and 8 p.m. Haley and Elvis were advertised above Hank Snow himself on the top half of the poster. So Elvis was really starting to take hold by 1955. 1956, and I have photographs for this. Elvis and Barbara Hearn had dinner with Dewey Phillips and George Klein at the State Cafe. Elvis broke his 2 front dental inserts. He must have bitten on something a little too hard. 1959, Elvis was paid a visit by E.J. Cotterill, the Army Information Officer. Cotterill reported to the Colonel that Elvis was still feeling homesick, but although in good shape and doing a good job. So I think Elvis, it says he was still homesick, but I believe that the whole time that Elvis was in Germany, he was homesick. He never got over it. I'm sure he couldn't wait until March 1960 to come back. This is quite a regular one that we cover actually most years, and it's a well-known one as well. In 1960, Elvis broke his finger playing touch football at Graceland. Look at that smile there. There's actually that's Alan Fortas. I think that's not Scotty. That looks like over Elvis's left shoulder. That looks like Sonny West, and I think that is Anita Wood as well on Elvis's right, and looks like Joe as well on the right. And there is Elvis. Well, he looks like he's donating some blood, or at least they're taking a sample of blood off him. But there's, it looks like Billy from the left, then Alan Fortas. Junior Smith is on the far right by the looks of it. Yeah, just some great photographs. 1961 was Wild in the Country. 1962, let's just get rid of that for a second. 1962, It Happened at the World's Fair. 1964, Tickle Me. 1967, Elvis is in Arizona for Stay Away Joe. 1971, Elvis was in Palm Springs for the weekend. I would imagine Chino Canyon. 845 Chino Canyon Road. Yeah. 1973, Elvis is in Memphis Baptist Memorial Hospital. Linda Thompson stayed in a room with him. 1976, The Girl of My Best Friend hit number 9 in the UK. And Elvis performed at the Duluth Arena, Duluth, Minnesota. And I do have a photograph of that performance in one of the Phoenix suits. But because it's a black and white photograph, I'm not sure which color suit it is. Photoshop. Yeah, I promised you a Photoshop, didn't I? And I said it was a bad one. And I do actually think that it is. It's this one here. So I don't know what people think Elvis would be doing standing behind a bar with a big bottle in front of him. But most people will know that that is the head of that photograph is from 1969, August the 1st, 1969, after Elvis had done the first opening show of his return to Vegas. And as you can see, that is a sort of a similar pose taken around about the same time where he's laughing. And if I put them side by side, you can see that somebody has taken a photograph of somebody stood behind a bar, and then they've put a 1969 Elvis head on top of it. And that is probably one of the worst Photoshops I've ever seen. It really is. So, and if you come across a Photoshop, or you know of a Photoshop that you really hate seeing, you can send it in to me, and send the original in if you can, and I'll cover it on another show. And we are also going to do a song I wish Elvis had recorded in a second, and this was supplied by a viewer stroke listener. Chris says, God, that's the most stupidest one I've ever seen. Well, I would agree with you. Jack says, I think it's the Red Phoenix. Did he have the Red Phoenix on in Duluth? Did he? Okay, we have a super chat, and the super chat is Ed Kaiser. Thank you for everything you do for Elvis, Steve. He would be so proud of you. Ed, that is very, very kind of you. Thank you very, very much. It's done for Elvis, but it's also done for you as well out there, because this is your channel. It's not my channel, it's your channel. So it's Elvis, the Ultimate Fan channel. But Ed, I do appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. And the kind comment as well is very, very nice. Just a reminder that there's still time to vote on that interactive live poll. And it's, which do you prefer when listening to an Elvis song? And it is, as Elvis did it in the studio, in other words, no overdubs. And most of the tracks that Elvis recorded are now available sort of, undubbed. A lot of them came out over the last 20 or so years, so they're there to listen to. Or do you prefer them with the overdubs after the RCA had sort of jigged them about and put more sort of instruments to them, things like that? Or do you enjoy both versions and you appreciate the overdubs and the undubbed ones as well? And as I often say, I'm a no overdubs kind of guy. I would prefer to hear it the way that Elvis did it in the studio. I know that Elvis got a little bit upset with the tapes that were shipped to they were shipped up to New York, I believe, and overdubbed and then sent back for him to listen to. The March 1975 sessions that went to make Today, the album Today. And when I listened to my copy of Today, I listened to the undubbed disc, because there's two discs. There's the ones that was the actual original album, and then there's the undubbed versions. And I always listen to the undubbed versions. I do. So, but that's just me. That's just me. I can see there's still people voting on that. So I'll leave it a few more minutes. But in the meantime, I will do a song I wish Elvis had recorded. Now, I'm not sure if this person is watching live tonight. He might be doing a show of his own, actually, but he might get this on catch up. And the song was suggested by channel regular Mark Green. Hi, Mark. And it's a song by the English singer-songwriter Robbie Williams. It was included in Williams's debut solo album Life Through a Lens in 1997 and released as a single on the 1st of December 1997. It was written by Williams and Guy Chambers based on an earlier song written by Ray Heffernan. The song was the 38th best-selling single in 1997 in the UK and the 26th of 1998. So it was a very popular song. I'm pretty sure you're starting to guess what it is, but I'll tell you in a few minutes. It was the 34th best-selling UK single of the decade. Despite only reaching a peak of number 4, it is Williams' best-selling UK single, and according to the official UK charts company figures, passed the million mark in June 2009, with a combination of both physical and download sales. It has sold 1.8 million copies in the UK as of April 2021. It wasn't released in the US until 1999, 2 years after he first released it in the UK. If you haven't guessed by now, it's Angels. That's the song Angels. And I'm pretty sure that most of you are familiar with that song. Just in case there is somebody out there who's not familiar with that song, I'm going to put the link in the description box below so you can click on it. Now, I suppose with it being sort of written, Bossa Nova Babies put Angels ? So yes, it is Angels. Well done. Yeah. So, strictly speaking, Elvis couldn't really have recorded it because it wasn't really written until the mid-90s. But I'm pretty sure that if it had been available prior to Elvis's death, it could have been something that he could have tackled, especially the higher register parts of it. Elvis's voice could have handled that quite easily. And people are saying, is it She's the One? No. And Kirsty Marie is saying Rock DJ. No, it's Angels. And as I say, if there is somebody still around that doesn't know the song, click on the link and you can hear it. And imagine, can you imagine Elvis singing Angels? If you're watching this on playback, you can have your say about the song in the comment section below. And I would imagine that Maxine says, tonight's such an amazing show. Thank you very, very much. That's very kind, Maxine. And it says, Tracy says, blurring the lines here, Steve. Yeah, well, I like to get other people's opinion on these things. So, and any other opinions, and tell me what you thought about Dan talking about Red Robinson and Elvis in Canada. It was such a pleasure to speak to Dan. And Dan, if you're still listening, thanks again very much for your time. It was much appreciated. Mark Green says, for sure. So Mark, yes, I'm glad you're here. And thank you for suggesting that song. If there's anybody watching now, live or on playback, catch up, whatever you want to call it, and you want to suggest a song that you wish Elvis had recorded, if you're going about your daily life and you hear and you're in a supermarket or a gas station or anything like that, or listening to the radio and you think, I wish Elvis had recorded that song, send it in to me, and I could feature it in a future show. Now, I am going to close this poll because I am very, very interested in knowing what people like. Which do you prefer when listening to an Elvis song? As Elvis did it in the studio, no overdubs, with overdubs. I enjoy both versions. And it was close. It was close. That should come up now in a second. And there it is. As Elvis did it, 50%, and only 2% less say that they enjoy both versions. They can appreciate both versions. Yeah. And with with overdubs, only 3%. So in other words, only 3% of the people said they only like the ones with overdubs. And it's Kirsty says, I swayed people. Yeah, well, I'm actually in the 50% bracket there. No overdubs. I always like to hear the song without overdubs because sometimes I think the overdubs actually drowned out Elvis's voice. And at the end of the day, it's Elvis's voice I want to hear. Well, that was a very, very fast show. I can't believe I've been here an hour speaking to you. Thanks once again, Dan. It was great. Thanks for ringing in. And thanks to everybody that took part and joined in and commented and voted on the poll. Thanks to Ed for the super chat again, Ed. That's great. Very generous. And we'll do it all again next Sunday. And I've got to think of another good quiz topic that's fun. I had fun with the name, the co-stars though. Until next week, take care. Don't forget, you can buy me a coffee with a link below. I love coffee.